сентября 2005 года на границе Брест.
In early September 2025, Poland made a move that shocked both its neighbors and the wider world. It abruptly shut down key border crossings with Belarus, citing national security concerns tied to the massive Russian-Belarusian military exercises known as Zapad 2025. The decision was not only symbolic, but also highly practical, because these crossings, particularly at Małaszewicze, formed the beating heart of the China-Europe rail corridor, a logistics artery that had grown steadily in importance since the Belt and Road Initiative gained traction across Eurasia. Poland effectively stopped a flow of goods worth over 25 to 27 billion euros a year by stopping transit at these checkpoints. These goods range from consumer goods that support the European e-commerce boom to high-tech electronics and car parts. Both sides of the border felt the sudden paralysis instantly. European companies that had become used to 12 to 14-day delivery times from inland Chinese cities like Chongqing and Chengdu were suddenly faced with cancellations, delays, and growing expenses as containers piled up in Belarusian warehouses and drivers and passengers were caught in never-ending lines. The crisis laid bare how fragile this supposedly reliable corridor really was, how easily promises of speed and stability can collapse under the weight of political decisions, and how Europe's eastern flank, once seen as peripheral, has become a decisive lever in the continent's geopolitical posture. What unfolded next revealed the broader stakes behind what at first appeared to be a regional disruption. For China, this border closure was not just an economic inconvenience, but a reputational blow to the Belt and Road's carefully cultivated image as a secure and dependable alternative to sea or air transport. The vulnerability of Beijing's ambitious effort to outside politics was highlighted by the fact that one EU member state could shut down 90% of the rail freight traffic between China and Europe with a single declaration. Once appreciating Chinese rail shipments for their promptness, importers started to have uneasy concerns. What would happen if Poland closed its borders once more, or if comparable bottlenecks appeared elsewhere? The invisible currency of international trade, trust, began to give way to suspicion. Poland's aggressiveness, however, revealed a Europe less prepared to keep security and economics apart. Warsaw made it apparent that its decision was motivated by both a desire to pressure China into adopting a more definite position on Russia's war in Ukraine and national defense concerns. In diplomatic meetings, Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski bluntly told his Chinese counterpart that the border would not reopen until Beijing used its influence over Moscow and Minsk to reduce hybrid threats, from military posturing to the weaponization of migrants. In other words, Poland transformed trade into leverage, effectively forcing China to choose between its lucrative European markets and its strategic alignment with Russia. This was a rare instance where Europe's eastern frontier imposed costs not only on Moscow, but also on Beijing, highlighting a shift in the balance of power within Europe itself. Warsaw demonstrated that it was capable of shaping continental security doctrine as much as, if not more than, traditional power centers like Berlin or Paris. The consequences, however, extend far beyond a standoff between Poland and China. If the border remains closed for long, alternative routes will inevitably be strengthened, whether through the Baltic states, Central Asia, or the Caspian-Turkey corridor, each slower and more expensive but less vulnerable to a single choke point. This serves as a reminder to Europe that supply chains need to be planned for geopolitical risk and redundancy in addition to efficiency. It serves as a sobering reminder to China that its economic dependency does not protect it from the fallout from its political decisions. The closure jeopardizes the social contract that the Chinese Communist Party relies on for legitimacy, the assurance of consistent growth and prosperity, as well as industry output in inland regions that depend on quick access to European consumers. A move performed in Poland thousands of kilometers away will have an impact on the stability of China's home economy if shipments pause, output slows, workers lose their jobs, and unhappiness simmers. At the same time, Poland itself faces trade-offs. Its state-controlled logistics firms warn that prolonged closure could divert permanent flows to alternative routes, diminishing the role Warsaw had just begun to consolidate as a logistics hub. Yet Poland's leaders seem willing to bear that cost, believing that linking trade with security is essential for the continent's future. This is a turning point because Europe's doctrine that China must keep its distance from actors that jeopardize European security if it wishes to access Europe's wealth has never been stated so plainly. As a result, the closure has changed relationships in a number of ways. It has changed how companies perceive China's dependability, how the European Union views its eastern flank, and how China strikes a balance between its economic lifeline to Europe and its partnership with Russia. The crisis, in essence, is not only about containers and trains, but about the emergence of a new world order where commerce and security are inseparable. where Poland has moved from the geopolitical margins to the center stage, and where the decisions of one border country can reshape the strategies of the world's second largest economy.